Quick disclaimer just in case, even though I'm sure a fair few of y'all probably don't already seen them. If you want to get like, you don't have to, but if you want to get like a real better firm grasp of what we're going to talk about in this video, you might want to go check out these two for sure, and maybe these two. You don't really have to, but you know. And I know the thing's long now, but hey man, what can I say? It's a lot to talk about. It's a lot going on. Greetings, all brothers and sisters. All praises to the kingdom in the name of Yahuwah. Today I got a nice, heavy, hefty banger for the people. Because, me doing what I usually do, being scholarly and all that, off and on again, most of the time, found out a whole lot more about everything. So I'm like, all right, bet. I got to get it out. It's too much for me to keep to myself, you know what I'm saying? Nah, it's just my calling, though. On the real. Anyway, though, you see what's on the screen. You already know who this young man is speaking right here and who he's referring to. So we all know the basic Super Brew conception. Esau is the white man. Well, yeah, but it's more to it than that. And we talked about before in other videos how his name was not Esau, it's Esau. And it wasn't his name. They were just describing his appearance pale like the moon. So let's go past the surface level where everybody knows, Esau was the firstborn. History repeats itself. Same with Cain and Abel and then Seth. Same with Manasseh and Joseph, Reuben and the rest of his brothers. The firstborn, it's always the younger one that gets the glory. You feel me? So we know all that. Jacob got his birthright. Yada yada yada. He's been mad ever since. So let's get more into it. Now, in order to establish a foundation, I'm going to let brother over here, Thoughts, Camera, Action, play out, let one of his little videos play out about this topic to establish a foundation, like I just said. This video on the screen right here, so you can go watch the whole thing. And I highly recommend you just go on this man's channel and just look around. I'm sure you're going to find something you like. I learned a whole lot. Whole lot from man's right here. It's my boy. He's funny too, like hilarious.
Welcome to Thoughts, Camera, Action. Now, a question that I'm often asked is, how did Edom and Japheth become one and the same?
The sons of Japheth, Gomer and Magog and Madai and Javan and Tubal and Meshech and Tyrus. And the sons of Javan, Elisha and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, every one after his tongue, after their families in their nations.
The entry in Haston's Dictionary of the Bible under Javan has the following. Javan, in fact, is the Greek Ionian, and its position shows it must mean Cyprus. The book of Jasher further states, and the children of Javan are the Javanim, who dwell in the land of Macedonia, i.e. the Macedonians, from whom arose Alexander the Great. And the children of Eliashah are the Alamin, and they also went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities situate between the mountain of Job and Shibasham, and of them were the people of the Lombardy, who dwelt opposite the mountain of Job and Shibasham, and they conquered the land of Italia and remained there unto this day. And the children of Chittim are the Romim, who dwell in the valley of Canopia by the river Tiberi. The Romans near the river Tiber are thus said to be the descendants of Kittim. In chapter 60 of Jasher, the island of Sardinia is also associated with Kittim or Chittim. Who is Elisha? Of the three sons of Javan, also the son of Japheth, Elias gave name to the Elishans, who were his subjects. They are now the Aeolians. Pharsus to the Thracians, for so was Sicilia of old cord, the sign of which is this, that the noblest city they have, and the metropolis also, is Tarsus, the Tau being by change put for the Theta. Symphemus possessed the island of Symphemia. It is now called Cyprus, and from that it is that all islands and the greatest part of the sea coast are named Scythium by the Hebrews, and one city there is in Cyprus that has been able to preserve its domination. It has been called Citius by those who use the language of the Greeks, and has not by the use of that dialect escaped the name Citium.
Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. These are the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these are their dukes.
The book of Jasher says that the children of Chittim ruled over the Edomites, and the children of Chittim ruled over Edom, and Edom became under the hand of the children of Chittim, and became one kingdom from that day. The Japhetic king Latinus ruled over Britain and Kernania, which was a province around the area of France, and the children of Elisha, the Greeks. Further in Jasher 61:23-25, it said that while Sepho was the king of Kittim, and after having defeated the troops of Africa, he led his people so that they made war with Tubal and the islands, and they subdued them. And when they returned from the battle, they renewed his government for him, and they built for him a very large palace for his royal habitation and seat, and they made a large throne for him. And Sepho reigned over the whole land of Shittim and over the land of Italia 50 years. And during his reign he brought forth an army, and he went and fought against the inhabitants of Britannia and Kernania, the children of Elisha the son of Javan, and he prevailed over them and made them tributary. He then heard that Edom had revolted from under the hands of Chittim, and Latinus went to them and smote them and subdued them and placed them under the hand of the children of Chittim, and Edom became one kingdom with the children of Chittim all the days. In his historical and partly genealogical work Historia Britannium, Nennius puts names to individuals and the tribes they founded. Elanius is said by him to have been the first man into Europe after the flood, and to have been only generations removed from the patriarch Javan or Joham. The first man that dwelt in Europe was Alanus, with his three sons Hisakon, Armenian, and Nugio. Hisakon had four sons, Francus, Ramonius, Amunus, and Brutus. Armenian had five sons, Gothus, Vavalagothus, Sabedius, Burgundus, and Logobarbardus. Nigio had three sons, Vandalus, Saxo, and Bolganus. From Hiscion arose four nations, the Franks, the Latins, the Germans, and Britons. From Armenian arose five nations, the Gothi, Valagothi, Sibidi, Burgundy, and the Longobardi. From Nuigio arose four nations, the Bulgari, the Vandali, the Saxones, and the Tarinci. The whole of Europe was subdivided into these tribes according to the historian Nennius. So in a brief summary, we've seen the progenitors of the sons of Japheth, Javan, Chittim, Elisha, and seen where their posterity migrated to, and who they later became. According to the book of Jasher, we also see how the sons of Japheth overcame the sons of Edom and consolidated the two empires into one under the occupation of Chittim, which we know now to be Rome.
In the Septuagint, the book of Daniel 11:30 translates the occurrence of Kittim in as Romans. Louis Ginsburg, in his book titled Legends of the Jews, writes, "They, Esau and Jacob, will never be in the same estate. Esau will vaunt lords, while Jacob will have kings. They, Israel and Rome, are the two nations destined to be hated by all the world. One will exceed the other in strength. First, Esau will subjugate the whole world.
This is a white man's world. The white man from Europe dominates the whole planet. White men goes into any country and kill everybody, take over anything they want. This is a white man's country. It's a white man's world.
But in the end, Jacob will rule over all." Legends, Volume 1, page 314. Ginsburg further relates that God will call out to the Messiah, roar at this monster that devours the fat of the nations, that justifies its claims for recognition through being a descendant of Abraham by his grandson Esau, the nation that kept Israel back from the study of the Torah, and tempted them to deeds that are in accord with the wishes of Satan. Legends, Volume 3, page 167. Don Isaac Abarbanel, 1437-1508, a wealthy Jewish statesman and philosopher, believed that a tradition existed that many of the early Christians were Edomites. Ernest L. Martin, an author, historian, theologian, and meteorologist, in a book titled The People That History Forgot, claimed that most of the Edomites from Edom and many from Tyre went to the west to Italy and other places, where they became Christian. His book says that the Edomites migrated in masses to western regions of the Roman Empire. They became Christian but retained something of their previous practices and influenced early Christianity with their pagan traditions. Esau, like Jacob, was a mighty man of renown in ancient times. He was an explorer and wanderer, as well as a mighty hunter. He and his descendants, the Edomites, also founded or were part of the founding of such ancient world empires as that of Rome, Troy, Tyre, and Carthage, Italy, as well as Spain and the Ottoman Empire. In fact, the book of Jasher contains the following pertinent information. "And the children of Chittim continued their pursuit of Edom, and they smote them with a great slaughter, and Edom became subject to the children of Chittim. And the children of Chittim ruled over Edom, and Edom became under the hand of the children of Chittim, and became one kingdom from that day. And from that time they could no more lift up their heads, and their kingdom became one with the children of Chittim."
This is one very important passage, and may be the reason why the book of Jasher was not included in the Bible.
See that? A whole lot of familiar faces. You can trace all this wickedness. Man, they still the same. It's modern versions of the same breed. For example, Ammonon, who one of the families that they birthed was the Goths. We all know, at least we should know that, for example, Kim Kardashian and her family are Armenian witches. And I mean, it's the Kardashians. Like, that speaks for itself. In the world, high places in this world, the devil's world, about as high as you can get. Everybody knows about the Kardashians, even though we shouldn't be keeping up with them.
What the fuck? Am I in trouble?
But back to that video we just saw. You saw how it was like the dude was talking about Israel and Rome, two families destined to be hated by the world over. Esau will subjugate the world or whatever, but eventually Jacob shall reign forevermore. I mean, it's already been written, so we didn't need that guy to tell us, but you know. We saw how they were the early Christians with all that paganism and nonsense. And we saw how they like to legitimize their destructive habits by, proclaiming the true fact that they are the grandsons of Aber because twins. But as you can see, what happened after the fact, one can only resume as a result, at least in part of their actions or his actions and his people's actions. Esau Edom is no longer independent. They've been under the hand of Chittim and Rome ever since that day and to this day, and they're going to be burned up with them. Hence why Esau shall be burnt by Jacob and Joseph, the flame and the fire. And there will be no survivors after Esau. Not only because, he sealed his own fate, but definitely if he assimilated with the real actual sons of darkness, Rome, because, it's easy to forget that, once upon a time, Esau was just a straight up Hebrew, like Jacob. They're literally twins. So he was literally a feather person, a winged person, because that's what Eber means, wings. Healing in our wings and such. And Esau was the one who slayed Nimrod. So, he fulfilled a prophecy back in Abraham's time. If you don't know the story, Nimrod back then had a dream. And a part of that dream was he saw a baby bird pluck out his eyes and he woke up with a start. And then he called his little seers or whatever, and they interpreted the dream and said, "Oh, yes, king, this is nothing but the seed of Abraham that shall destroy you." You know what I'm saying? So, Esau did that. That wasn't Jacob. Esau did that. So once upon a time, all was well with the world. But, things happen. As a result of that, he got subjugated by Rome and has been with them since his day. So the sons of darkness assimilated him to this kingdom, to their kingdom. And they was already, we was already beefing, obviously. They're the sons of darkness. So you're Esau's underneath the hands of the children of darkness for all the days. It's a wrap.
Furthermore spake the messengers, Why dost thou envy me in respect to the blessing wherewith my father blessed me? Is it that the sun shineth in my land and not in thine? Or doth the dew and the rain fall only upon my land and not upon thine?
Quick interjection. This is just my opinion. I'm not sure, but I have a feeling, like I said, I'm not sure, but I have a feeling that what he just said is referring to the inner earth, because he's going to talk about later on how Jacob has, the sun shines on his land, rain falls, but Esau has the fatness of the earth. And so I'm like, okay, well, the rain doesn't fall there, the sun doesn't shine there. He's talking about the fatness of the earth. What else would that be? But like I said, that's just me. It's just a hunch.
If my father blessed me with the dew of heaven, he blessed thee with the fatness of the earth. And if he spoke to me, peoples will serve thee, he has said unto thee, by thy sword shalt thou live. How long then wilt thou continue to envy me? Come now, let us set up a covenant between us, that we will share equally in all the vexations that may occur. Esau would not agree to this proposal. His friends dissuaded him therefrom, saying, Accept not these conditions, for God hath said to Abraham, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in the land that is not theirs, and shall serve the people thereof, and the alien shall afflict them 400 years. Wait therefore until Jacob and his family go down into Egypt to pay off this debt. Jacob also sent word to Esau, saying, Though I dwelt with that heathen of the heathen, Laban, yet have I not forgotten my God, but I fulfill the 613 commandments of the Torah. If thy mind be set upon peace, thou wilt find me ready for peace. But if thy desire be war, thou wilt find me ready for war. I have with me men of valor and strength, and they have but to utter a word, and God fulfills it. I tarried with Laban until Joseph should be born, he who is destined to subdue thee. And though my descendants be held in bondage in this world, yet a day will come when they will rule over their rulers. In reply to all these gentle words, Esau spoke with arrogance.
Of course he did. That matter's not changed. Another excerpt from that story is, history, but another excerpt from that story is when Jacob when Esau was coming with basically his whole squad, and a lot of people, with bad intentions to meet Jacob. He was gonna pull up intentionally lavish and like doing a whole bunch of extravagant stuff because he knew his brother and he knew his brother was vain. You feel me? Ain't nothing changed. Anyway, though, I'm finna show you how they be telling the same exact stories over and over and over again. Now, look, man, we done discussed a lot of examples like that on this channel, but if I'm being completely honest, this has got to be the most, one of, if not the most egregious example of just, I don't even know what you call this, black magic, son. Just, let's get on with it. So this is from Demon Slayer. You probably heard of it. It's hands down one of the most popular franchises ever. Like, ever. That's been recently or in all time when it comes to media, bro. You probably can already get a sense of what's about to go down here. So, bro on the right is Yoriichi, and bro on the left is his brother, Kokushibo, after he became a demon. Alright? So, there's already parallels to be drawn here, but let's build up.
This is where we get some interesting information. Apparently, Yoriichi taught many people sword and breathing techniques, but no one could match him. Most people could not learn the Breath of the Sun style. As a result, Yoriichi changed the breathing technique in order to suit each person's skills and capabilities. Thus, this is how all the different breath styles came to be. They were all adapted from Yoriichi's original Breath of the Sun technique. Water, mist, fire, and all of the others were created because people couldn't learn Breath of the Sun, the strongest and original form. Not only was Yoriichi behind all breathing styles, he was also behind the markings that Demon Slayers developed. As far as we can tell, Yoriichi, the first breath user, was also the first one with the mark. Because of him, the number of marked ones increased and the power of the other Demon Slayers rose. Even Kokushibo developed a mark and his was identical to Yoriichi's. But he still wasn't good enough to master the Breath of the Sun. He could only learn an offshoot of it, later called Breath of the Moon.
The Kassite of Mesopotamia, who venerated the goddess, whoever, idolatry, were kin to a line descended from the biblical Esau. And it's not Esau, it's Esau. Remember, these are translations.
White skins. The moon. To be pale and white like the moon. That's where that fake name that they call Esau, that's where it comes from. His name was not Esau, and it wasn't really his name. It was describing his outer appearance, Esau. He was pale like the moon, but he had afro hair like ours.
And interplanetary warfare. For example, the protagonist of the novel is the author Lucian himself. In the book, he witnesses the battle between the people of the sun and the people of the moon. They fight for the right to claim and colonize the morning star.
It is a courtship ritual that is as perilous as it is spectacular. At the height of her climb, she will lock talons with him and drop out of the sky in a dazzling free fall, just like bald eagle pairs still do today.
Join in free fall, plummeting toward Earth, locked in each other's embrace, separating only at the very last moment.
Yeah, well, it's gonna get a lot worse. If you thought that wasn't bad enough. So look right here. This, bro, I looked this up a long time ago because I already knew what was up with this man. Because, you know, these characters with their symbols, like, nothing represents just one thing, you feel me? So I was like, okay, let's just see what's going on here. Because I know too much, son. I know they're up to something, right? Yoriichi Sugakuni, Hebrew Messiah. The first result that pops up. All right. I mean, that's self-explanatory, bro. This is his brother before he became a demon and changed his name to Kokushibo. Michikatsu Sugakuni. So Esau. Last one was Jacob and the Sons of Righteousness, Sons of Light. And obviously Yosha because, you know, the sun. And I mean, you saw what it said, Hebrew Messiah. This is Esau, the Sons of Darkness. Death Wish. You can definitely say Esau and definitely them Sons of Darkness have had and will always have a death wish until the death wish is fulfilled because of the way they act and what they do. So, now that we've established that, nerd alert, because this dude, I just think about how despicable this is. This man is gushing right now over what he thinks is a fake story with just, oh, these super cool characters and compelling dialogue. It's the same thing as them damn fairy tales and all these tales, bro. It's all that's why these types of media and such are so captivating to people, all these stories, because they don't even realize it, but they're sensing the inherent truth in these so-called stories. That's why certain stories such capture so many audiences. Why do you think like Star Wars, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings are as big as they are? It's black magic, man.
Like I always say, I am psyched when we get more information about Yorichi, and this is probably the chapter that gives us the most information about him. The chapter is called Little Brother, and it starts off with Kokushibo saying how people who don't feel jealous are lucky. They're lucky because they never met someone like Yorichi, someone who lives with the favor of the gods lavished upon them. Then we get a really beautiful line. We are told that people like Yorichi burn like the sun, so fiercely they consume everything around them. As they say, the brightest light casts the darkest shadow, and Kokushibo's life was spent right in the middle of that shadow. In other words, because Yorichi's talent always shines so bright, Kokushibo is left in the darkness, starved for attention. This light versus darkness metaphor is further emphasized by the fact that Yorichi used the Breath of the Sun style compared to Kokushibo's Breath of the Moon style. It is clear that Kokushibo has a huge inferiority complex because of his talented brother, so let's see how it developed. As we know, the two were born twins. It was thanks to her that Yorichi was spared. Rather than killing him, they decided that he would eventually be sent to the temple at the age of 10 where he would enter the priesthood. The two twins were raised in a completely different manner. Kokushibo was raised as the chosen one who would go on to become the head of the family. As a result, he had a better room, better clothes, better food, and a better education. The father was clearly picking favorites early on, and Kokushibo was the clear favorite. He was told from a young age that he was special and better than his little brother. Yorichi was always glued to his mom's left side. Kokushibo pitied him. Because of this, he made a flute and gave it to his little brother. This is a really beautiful moment that we should stop and appreciate. Kokushibo clearly wasn't a bad person. Despite his father clearly establishing a narrative where he was superior to his little brother, Kokushibo didn't abuse that power. Rather, he cared about his little brother and even gave him gifts when he wasn't supposed to. And Kokushibo treated his brother kindly as far as we can tell, which goes to show that he was naturally a good person. Despite the terrible influence of his father, little Yorichi though didn't smile for the longest time, even when he received the flute. He never even spoke until the age of 7, so people thought he was deaf until then. But then, one day, when he was watching his brother practice his swordsmanship skills, he spoke fluently out of nowhere. The first thing he ever said was about his big brother. He asked him if his dream was to become the strongest samurai in the land. Kokushibo was so surprised that his brother could talk, let alone talk fluently, that his breath halted and he dropped his sword. This was the beginning of the role reversal that would take place between the brothers. Yorichi started saying that he also wanted to become a samurai, and then he smiled for the first time. The little unhappy, quiet brother that Kokushibo had always pitied was suddenly talking and smiling. It unnerved Kokushibo, perhaps because he sensed that their relationship was beginning to change. Kokushibo thought at first that it was impossible for Yorichi, someone who clung to his mother's side whenever he saw her, to become a samurai because samurai had to be willing to risk their lives in battle. No mama's boy could do that. So Kokushibo thought it would never happen. How wrong he was. One day, while Kokushibo was being trained in swordsmanship, Yorichi showed up to watch. Kokushibo's trainer decided to humor Yorichi. He gave him a bamboo sword, he verbally told him how to use it, and then the trainer took a ready stance. He had no idea what was about to happen. This kid, who had never held a sword in his life, absolutely wrecked him. Kokushibo trained, and he could never land a hit on his trainer. His first time, Yorichi, in the blink of an eye, hit him 4 times and knocked him down flat. As a 7-year-old who'd never even held a sword, Yorichi gave the sword expert 4 fist-sized welts all over his body. I'm a younger brother myself, so I can't fully understand how an older brother feels, but I think we would all be at least a little upset if we spent years practicing something and our younger sibling tried it for the first time and completely surpassed us, especially if we always thought that we were superior to that sibling in every way. After he completely crushed the swordsmanship expert at the age of 7, Yorichi actually said he no longer wanted to be a samurai. He couldn't stand how hitting people feels. Kokushibo though wanted to know the secret to Yorichi's strength. It turns out that even at 7 years old, Yorichi had access to the see-through world, the one that Gyomei, the strongest pillar, just gained access to during the most recent fight against Kokushibo. Yorichi told Kokushibo to take a good look at his skeletal alignment, muscle contraction, blood flow, that sort of thing. Of course, this meant nothing to Kokushibo at the time, because he didn't yet have access to the see-through world. Eventually, Kokushibo figured out that for Yorichi, living bodies were transparent. Yorichi's mark, which was at first thought to be a bad omen, was actually what gave him extraordinary insight and equally extraordinary physical prowess. And this is where we get a really important line where it all sinks in for Kokushibo. He says, and I quote, "The person whom I had until that moment looked down on had far outstripped me," end quote. At this point, Kokushibo has fully realized just how out of his league his little brother, who he thought was an untalented mess just a little while ago, truly is. Kokushibo was scared. He knew that his father was told about Yorichi's great talent. He feared that they would switch places in his father's eyes. Yorichi would become the heir and samurai, while Kokushibo would be sent to the temple.
You stole everything I had in the world. You took my mother, you took my body, you took my power! Madara, this will not be the place of your death.
Then one night Yorichi visited him. He told Kokushibo that their mother had died. Yorichi says that he is Kokushibo's retainer, aka someone of inferior rank taken on to serve at the leader's pleasure. Even though he is stronger than Kokushibo at this point, Yorichi wants to serve under his brother. For Yorichi, his older brother is the most important person in his life. He gets strength by thinking about him and how kind he was to him. He says he will strive day after day. No matter how far from home he drifts, he will not lose heart because he will think of his elder brother who gave him this flute. Even though it was a pretty crappy flute that could produce nothing but off-key notes, Yorichi treated it like it was his most precious treasure because his brother gave it to him. Yorichi then bowed to his brother deeply and with almost no belongings left the house. Through his mother's diary, Kokushibo learns that Yorichi realized he would usurp Kokushibo's place as heir. He left before that decision could be made. Then we figure out that Yorichi knew everything about his mother's illness. While Kokushibo was protected from it, Yorichi was constantly helping her. It wasn't that Yorichi was a crybaby who needed to cling to his mother. Yorichi as a child was actually supporting his mother so she could walk with less pain. The left side of her body grew more and more impaired, and Yorichi was the one taking care of her, while Kokushibo didn't even have to worry about it. So while Kokushibo thought that Yorichi was a spoiled mama's boy, he was actually the one responsible for taking care of their sick parent at such a young age. This fact infuriates Kokushibo. He is so upset it even appears like he starts bleeding from his nose. He crumples the pages of the diary. He can feel his body being consumed by the flames of jealousy from inside out. From the very bottom of his soul, he blazed with hatred for the genius known as Yorichi. Then we are told that the brothers are separated by a wall called talent at the end of the chapter. He was constantly treated like the superior one. People thought his brother was completely untalented and that he couldn't even talk. He got used to this arrangement. He got used to being the better one, the superior one. He got used to pitying his poor, less fortunate brother. Then, one day, it all got turned around. His brother began talking, he began kicking butt with a sword, and he was revealed to be a more selfless, caring person than Kokushibo. He selflessly took care of his mother until she died. Then, as soon as she died, and no longer needed him, he left so as not to get in Kokushibo's way. He also took great joy in a crappy flute, while Kokushibo had so many more luxuries and was still unhappy. To make things worse, Kokushibo was saved by his little brother, who he looked down on until just recently. That was a huge wound to Kokushibo's pride. While Kokushibo feared being sent to the temple, Yorichi was braver. He willingly abandoned a life of comfort and left on his own. Kokushibo thought his little brother wasn't brave enough to be a samurai before, but in truth, he was always braver than him. All of these things made Kokushibo feel worthless, like a greatly inferior version of Yoriichi, and he would carry this feeling around his whole life.
Obviously, some liberties were taken because they're not going to tell you the whole truth, but do I really have to say anything?
But wait! There's more!
Kokushibo, after getting decapitated, is remembering his brother smiling. He says that every time his little brother smiled, he couldn't help but feel a sense of discomfort. That image of Yoriichi smiling is the one seared into Kokushibo's heart. Whenever Kokushibo brought up not having successors to their breaths, Yoriichi would just smile. He wasn't worried, he was always optimistic. He had no concern whatsoever. If we remember from previous chapters, Yoriichi was so calm because, even though he was arguably the strongest demon slayer in history, he was sure that children would be born who surpass him.
Bro, I was watching this One Piece theory the other day because, like I said, these nerds don't know what they be talking about, so I just be here strictly for the info. It's like, man, once you got eyes to see these cats who are making all these videos about these so-called fictional series, it's just like, boy, free information, because I'm damn sure not finna watch all this, so thank you very much. But that man said something that made me think. It's like, bro, our lineage is literally just like crazy, bro. Like, if you really think about it, like Matthias, Joshua, David, Moses, Abraham, like, bro, our lineage is insane.
He's the elder statesman of that group, but let's not put him above these younger candidates that have insane lineage.
The atavism of the Mazoku.
That's affirmative, sir. It's through that rare phenomena that we think Urameshi inherited his demon blood. And if we're right, which by all signs we are, he's a genetic time bomb just waiting to trigger.
DNA, the blueprint for life, passed from parent to child. An atavism is when a trait recurs in a descendant after skipping generations. This can even result in a reversion to the primitive characteristics of a remote ancestor. The atavism of the Mazoku, or half-breed, is an extreme example. The Mazoku can deliberately transmit its DNA recessively until it reaches an heir strong enough to succeed it, creating a demon sleeper.
Yeah, I've talked about before when I'm tripping. My boy Marty done talked about before plenty of times how they already know who all the arcs are, because our father sent us back time and time again to live different lives. Like, yeah, he has said before, prophets just angels of avatars, nigga. Avatars of angels and such. So they already know who we are. Niggas know exactly who I am, and to deny that at this point would be unbelievably naive. They know who all the arcs are. They just don't really know who the 144 is. So that's why they got the vaccines and all types of other stuff going. But, you know, I be using these terms because, I mean, bro, it cracks the code. MJC Jr. DNA atavism. 672. I would have to explain a lot to understand. You know, my area code is 678, but that's not even the reason. Have you considered there are no coincidences? Divine Holy Bride, the Almighty Father, God's Heavenly Queen raptured back home, His Royal Judge of Heaven, Heaven's Queen Courage of David, Divine Gene, the Angel of the Holy Spirit on earth. It's self-explanatory. And, you know, of course, they invert everything, so they talk about Demon Sleeper because their hero is the Antichrist. Their David is the Antichrist. Angel Sleeper, Black Lives Matter, demonic martial law, Joe Biden child sacrifice. The nigga's the president right now. I do not keep bloodline, the Davidic bloodline, and your name is Hapa. Now, if you new here, you don't know that's my real name because beings such as I, like for example, them the other side is the damn Sumerian guys that everybody, you know, used to worship back in the day or whatever, that rebrand themselves and repackage themselves a million different ways because more energy, more bang for your buck. I've explained this before. You got a whole group of niggas worshiping you in a whole different way over here, and then you got the same thing going all over the world. That's free energy, man. Free energy. But yeah, I got two names. Real name is Ahaba, which means love. My epithet is Raphael, which amongst other things means God heals and also just complete and utter destruction. My name on earth is Marlon Jermaine Cloud Jr. And like Marty be saying, they be borrowing our energy because your being is composed of three parts. The first part is the spirit, and then you got the body on the outside, and the soul is in between. So the soul is like the intermediary between the body and the spirit. So 2/3 of your body is incorporeal, so you're really not that physical, all things considered. You're basically in a mech suit, like pulling levers and such. So you can imagine how, I mean, yeah, niggas is like a walking generator, man. Not even just that, it's just the reality is fake. Like niggas is in a fishbowl right now, so they gotta they're the way Naima put it, we're in an enclosed system, so you know energy is just being reformed, redirected, and refined and such in all different manners of ways. They're freaking weird. I don't even know. But back to the topic. We having all that, they having a whole lot of nothing, man.
Not only did he not care about being surpassed, he even liked the idea so much it made him smile every time. Kokushibo was the complete opposite though. He felt that his and his brother's generation alone was extraordinary, and he took a lot of pride in that fact. Because he had so much pride, he'd grow nauseous from the irritation and discomfort that came with the thought of not being the strongest. He hated the idea of being surpassed, as he hated the fact that his brother seemed to be effortlessly calm and happy all the time, while he seemed to be frustrated and concerned all the time. He just couldn't understand what his brother found so amusing. There are multiple paths to becoming stronger, and the demon way is the cheap shortcut. But you can get just as strong, if not stronger, the right way by working hard as a human. Yorichi did this, and he was always stronger than his demon brother. It may require more hard work, but you don't have to give up your principles and become a monster in order to become strong. Then Kokushibo thinks again about Yorichi. He thinks about why he was so amused when he imagined a future where he'd be surpassed. When Kokushibo would so much as think about losing, it would make his blood boil. He believes he's finally reached an unbeatable form and that he'll never lose again. That's when he sees his hideous reflection in Sanemi's sword. If we've been paying attention, we know at this moment that he's going to have a significant reaction to this hideous reflection. And he does. He's shocked by the hideous form. It represents what he's become internally too. He's become a monster that is willing to sacrifice all codes and principles for power. Then he gets a memory of his little brother Yorichi when he was young. Presumably, this is before Yorichi surpassed Kokushibo in skill. Yorichi at this point looked up to Kokushibo. He wanted to be like his older brother. While Kokushibo wanted to be the strongest samurai in the land, Yorichi said that he would be the second strongest samurai in the land. However, after all these centuries, it's blatantly obvious at this point that Kokushibo's become someone or something that his little brother would never have looked up to. While he's being attacked and disappearing, Kokushibo thinks one last time that he should do something, but then he sees the image of his older brother pitying him. He says, "My deepest sympathies, brother," and cries for him. Then Kokushibo says, "Cut off my head, carve up my body, smash it. I cannot swallow defeat, and by that ugliness, I live in shame. Is this what I've lived these centuries for? What did I want? To not lose? To the point I even became a hideous monster? To become stronger? To the point I even consumed humans? To not die? To the point I even devolved into this wretched beast? No." Then he says he just wanted to be like his brother Yorichi. Then he passes on. It seems like Kokushibo is suggesting that he wanted to live by the samurai code. He wanted to be brave, but he was afraid, and out of the fear of defeat and death, he chose to become a demon. He wanted to be loyal and benevolent, but in his search for survival and power, he killed humans. He wanted to accept his fate like the stoic Yorichi, but he kicked and screamed against fate. He was willing to do anything to avoid defeat and death, and that turned him into a monster, and he ended up losing things even more important than his life. Similarly, Yorichi could have always extended his life by becoming a demon, but he would rather die than compromise his principles like that. Kokushibo lacked this commitment to principles. He would have done anything no matter how shameful or dishonorable to survive, and that is the difference between him and Yorichi. While Yorichi was led by principles, Kokushibo was led by fear. Ultimately, his dying wish was that he didn't give in to fear, and that he had the courage to live a more principled life like Yorichi. If we decide that we won't be happy until we're the best at something like Kokushibo did, then we'll never be happy. Even if we achieve that goal, we'll feel empty inside and immediately create a new goal, and it will become a never-ending cycle of unhappiness. Moving towards external goals can be good, but until we can be happy right here and now with what we have, chances are we'll never be happy. This was Kokushibo's issue. He could have been grateful for having a beautiful family and for not having to kill demons every day of his life. He could have been content with living a peaceful life with them. He could have appreciated the fact that he was one of the best swordsmen in the world, and if he really wanted to, he could have consistently worked on improving his skills while enjoying the process. He could have counted himself blessed because his father made him the heir to his fortunes, and his brother loved him more than anything. He could have lived a truly blessed existence, if only he didn't let his need to be the #1 strongest swordsman ruin his life. Kokushibo had a full glass right in front of him, but he was too busy complaining about the half-empty glass at the other end of the room.
I made sure to put that last part in because that analogy was excellent. Because at the end of the day, Esau was still a Hebrew, and he still had his own blessing, and he was a mighty hunter. He was having the honeys, the females. He was renowned for being able to, he had his own thing going, but he coveted. He coveted. He wanted our spot. So it's like, bruh. And then, obviously, he was salty. He was like, Jacob did this, Jacob did that. My boy, it's like, if it was not within our Father's will for that to happen, it wouldn't have happened. You did? So instead of being content, man was complacent in covetousness. And as you can see by reading this lovely little passage around here, around the time my eye back in the day was getting old, he was getting bold and got crushed. And now it's cold forever. No more Edom. Just wrong. But now that we got all that established, let's get more in depth about the nature of these peoples. Because as I've said many times before, Abraham's seed, us, are not normal people. Reading on, by the time it was a matter of recorded history that the Edomites had risen to greater fame than ever achieved by the Israelite house of David. Okay, gotcha, bro. It is within their history that we find another root of the elf distinction. For the members of this influential king tribe were described in old biblical Hebrew as Elves. Now, all the excerpts we shall be reading from this upcoming book were penned by one such Lawrence Gardner, who was a British author and lecturer. He wrote on subjects such as the Jesus or Yahusha bloodline, because remember, it's 2 C's. So Jesus, that white boy and all them, those are the Merovingians, all right? That's the white boys. So if you ever see or hear somebody talking about Merovingian, this, that, or third, buck hard, because those are your direct adversaries, okay?
Most people have heard of Jesus Christ, considered by Christian followers to be the Messiah who lived over 2,000 years ago. But very few people have ever heard of Sabbatai Zevi, who declared himself to be Messiah in 1666. He amassed a following of over 1 million believers, half the world's Jewish population during the 17th century, by proclaiming that redemption was available through acts of sin.
So he brought on subjects such as that, anti-gravity, and the cloning of Ada and Amma, which, hey man, at this point, who knows? I haven't come across anything about that, but I wouldn't put it past him. We used one of his books before in the Royal DNA video. The first book, they talk about their bloodline and the Holy Grail. Talking about how Jesus and Mary Magdalene, a witch, married and had children whose descendants including King Arthur. He talks about monatomic gold, which they use, the type of stuff. I talk about other stuff in that Royal DNA video. There's about Freemasonry, Knights Templar, Holy Grail, yada, yada, yada. And he refers to himself as Chevalier Labrand de Saint-Germain and the presidential attaché to the European Council of Princes. Also, prior of the Celtic Church's sacred kindred of St. Columbia, and claims to be a Jacobite historiographer royal of the Royal House of Stuart. So as you can see, he's 100% proud of the cider. Just like I'm proud of my lineage, he's proud of his, or he was, if he's even really dead. You know how these niggas go, man. But yeah, That's who wrote the book. And both of these books are free, so you can read them both online. I ain't paying not a dime for either one of these books. They came out like 21 years ago, so yeah. Literally, real life seed cane perspective, so we gotta take all this from a grain of salt. But don't worry, that's what I'm here for. It all representative customs of the fairy culture, which just means fate, and they call it fate because they carry the fate of the dragon bloodline, or the other side of sons of darkness. From the earliest Scythian kings, which is part of the 10 lost tribes, and those of the Tuatha De Danann, which is connected with the tribe of Dan, and came from a certain you-know-who. We'll talk about it later. He'll get name dropped if you can't figure it out. Their social structures were firmly centered upon designated seats of assembly, which became known as fairy rings. These seats from Scythia to Ireland were known as raths, which denoted round or circular. On that account, the round table of Arthurian romance was designed to symbolize his fairy ring. And in accordance with traditional ring lore, the land fell into waste and chaos when the power of the ring, or this group of people of this royal blood, was usurped by virtue of Queen Guinevere. Notice how these names get used over and over again in all types of stories, being unfaithful to Arthur with Lancelot. King Arthur is real, by the way. We gonna all this stuff is real. We're not gonna get into that because that's not really what this is about. If you want to find out all that, just go read the book yourself. But King Arthur, Robin Hood, mermaids, all that stuff is real, man. Everything. I mean, everything. Check this out. We building up to something. The color associated with the transcendent state was green, the color of nature, and Robin Hood's greenwood garb. It was the paramount color of elves and of the stag of the while also being the gale's color of death. Green is additionally associated with the goddess Venus, so Ishtar, Nanya, Diana, them types, and with fertility, which is why it is not ritually used by a Christian church. Yeah. Venus is Aphrodite, so a whole lot of shagging going on. It is the color of wisdom and the color of Elfane, which is like Elfland. It's also the same thing to do with Shambhala. It's a real place, but it's also like inner spiritual enlightenment or something dumb like that. Both of which are inaccessible to the uninitiated, but are envied and sought by them. As a product of which green has become the traditional color of envy, according to this guy. Also so that word down there says albigens. That's what's up with all this, like the Mary Magdalenes you see, the Mel you see is the girl on the Starbucks cover, and with the Marine Kingdom and such. Because if you don't know, the Marine Kingdom is the largest chapter of Satan's kingdom. That's why the beast's always coming out the water and stuff. So it's a lot to do with water, which is why you got right there the house of Vivian Del Axe. That means house of the waters. Same with like they does say Del Axe or Dulac, which means of the lake. So for example, and all that's symbolic, not just of the waters, but also of what they do, because we talked about this before. They basically drink excretions and secretions from females of these bloodlines to get like powers and enlighten themselves per se. So for example, Lancelot of the Lake, that's actually just a butchered translation. His real name would be Lancelot du Lac, which means Lancelot of the waters, or Lancelot of the dragon's blood.
Sexual sins comes from water spirits. Marine spirits are the most diabolical. In addition, the marine world is the largest division in Satan's kingdom. Seducing spirits lead to sexual sins. It makes sense for the beast system to portray sirens as mermaids. It was through lust the watchers sinned with the daughters of men. And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. The seducing siren spirit is very present in the beast system today. Remember, Babylon is a place where all kinds of foul spirits found refuge. Many people speak on the Jezebel spirit, but ignore the numerous other spirits that influence mankind on earth. Today, the siren spirit is very present. Have you noticed the trend of long, colorful hair? The beast system often portray mermaids to have long, colorful hair. Presently, many women are braiding their hair in extremely long, colorful braids, the Rapunzel look. Some are wearing obnoxiously long rainbow wigs. That trend stems from the mermaid siren spirit.
So Abidjan just means elf maiden, which is why, unfortunately, a lot of people like to bash women for historically being temptresses and seductive. And I mean, it's not like you can't overgeneralize like that. We're talking about a very specific type of woman here, you know? But it's like these are the repercussions of their actions, which is why, part of why, you know, in part reasons why they're getting it so hard when they get it. You did. Even more, green was especially the color of the royal ambassadors and was particularly associated with Beanie in Ireland, where the wearing of the green was symbolic of the shamrock and of the ancient fairy culture. It's also the paramount color of the elves and the green stack, yada, 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 yada. Would you look at that? It's Link. It's Link. What he got on? Green. He got pointy ears, blonde hair, and blue eyes. He's known for either the sword or the bow and arrow. See right there? Esau, go get your quiver and your bow. Go hunt me some game, man. Whew. Ain't it something? See right there, bro. This freaking series. I've been playing this series since I was like 8. I remember some of my earliest memories. Niggas on East Atlanta in the guest room, my grandparents' house, playing Ocarina of Time, son. Some of my earliest memories is walking out of the Temple of Time after you sleep for 7 years in the sacred realm, in the time which the evil guy Ganondorf takes over the world. So you wake up 7 years later, old enough to go save the world. High rule, high up. I will exalt myself above the most high. Spiritual wickedness in high places. High German. Named after the Hylians, the dominant race, who are blonde haired and blue eyed with pointy ears. My guy, they think niggas is buck wild stupid out here. Look at right here, Hylas, a youth who served as Hercules' companion, aka another one of them. Hercules. And one of his most popular stories is him getting, I think, seduced by water nymphs. So something else about water spirits and just water in general. Hylas, Hyrule, Hylian, Hylia. Come on now. And notice how first of all, Zelda ain't never spoke a word of actual voice dialogue as far as I'm aware. And I played many of these games. She ain't spoken a word of actual voice dialogue until the most recent one, Breath of the Wild. So it cannot be coincidence, which I don't believe in regardless, but it would be a hell of a coincidence that in the first game where Zelda has voice-spoken lines, she has a very distinct High German accent.
Some adjustments on that divine beast so Daru can manage it as easily as possible. He's figured out how to get it to move. However, it's apparent that we still have much more to learn. But to think that divine beast was actually built by people. That means we should be able to understand how it works and how to use it to our advantage. These divine beasts, so much we don't know. But if we want to turn back Calamity Ganon, they're our best hope.
The word fairy is a very good example of such an adjustment. Generally speaking, it conjures an image of a tiny gossamer winged sprite, which exists. They are not nice at all. They're eusocial like bees and ants, and they're extremely territorial and very wicked. So, yeah. But this is a late interpretation based upon a determined propagandist teaching. If we trace the word back in the ancient time, we discover that it emanates from fair, which is precisely the same root as pharaoh, meaning a great house, and being specifically identified with a kingly dynasty. Moving on. Right here we got Sobek and Neferu, which is was a pharaoh. The beauty of Sobek, which is a crocodile god. And the reason why the crocodile is so idolized, not only is it aquatic and not only is it reptilian, but it resembles a dragon. They're of the same type of family, you know, crocodiles and dragons. So it's all dragons, man. See right here, we now know that the popular image of the noble Celt, the tall, blonde, blue-eyed warrior, or the flaxen-haired maiden is not Celtic at all. The demeanors of Nordic and Caucasian stock aliens while the red-haired, green, or pale-eyed Gaelic types were of noble Scythian origins, so lost tribes. They are the fairies of the Tuatha De Danann, who, as confirmed by Herodotus, were identified as royal Siths. And again, they descended from you know who. Okay, you should know what I'm talking about, but we gonna name drop them if you still can't figure it out. They perceived themselves as a kingly race. They had a caste system, and from that, the clan system evolved. Like the caste in India, where we know them boys was way back in the day. Fairies or fae are generally associated with an ability to perform magic of one sort or another, and this too had its historical base in the culture of the Tuatha, priests and kings. Their magic was essentially geared to outstanding gifts of perception, along with their ability to access the wisdom of elf fame. Now, this man just lied by omission a lot, because basically, we already talked about the force and all that. That's what he's referring to with the wisdom of elf fame, not just the wisdom of the elf land. Because remember I said they like to do where it's a real place, but they also talk about it like a place of enlightenment. So when they're talking about accessing the wisdom of Elfane, they're basically talking about being able to use the force. So yeah, it's a lot going on, because they don't call it they call it by many names. They call it by like the sacred fire, Pan's altar flame, chaos, akasha. They call it all types of stuff, and the wisdom of Elfane is just alluding to that. So yeah, it's real out here, man. It really is. I mean, it's literal aliens speaking to you right now, so it's like whatever. In this regard, the maintenance of a pure blood stock was very important to the Scythians, and intermarriage with those outside the fairy caste was forbidden and doubtless often lamented. Remember, we talked about that before in the Royal DNA video. The niggas is inbred like a moth, boy. That's why in Game of Thrones, I think the first king, Aegon Targaryen, his wives were his sisters. They stayed doing that. The Targaryens. So yeah, Daenerys, they're inbred. Because they're trying to keep the damn bloodline pure, my boy. We not talking about within the same clan. No, it's like, nigga, I outside, look at all my clans with me. Yeah, they looking nice, but you know, my sister over here is looking real good right now. And I mean, look, that's bad enough. But that's not even the real reason. The real reason is far worse. Because it's like, wow, my guy, just forget morals. I want to be powerful, ain't it? Well, that's why you're getting burnt up. You and your whole camp, Galadriel, Elrond, it's over, it's done. They've been, they've been right there the whole time. Right, this shit is a trip, man. Okay, so look, often associated with pagan stone circles and fairy rings, often cutely portrayed. Remember that, often cutely portrayed. Bruh, this nigga knows, like I said, this nigga is a part of the system. Like, throughout all this book, you gotta discern hard when reading this, because he be lying. He be omitting things. He be admitting some things, but trying to make it seem like stuff ain't all the way how it is. You can't like tell the truth. It's all the way. All this type of stuff is real, but he be trying to act like certain stuff is real and certain stuff ain't. Nah, bro. All the stories are true, but like remember that often cutely depicted. This nigga is talking over your head. You gonna see what I mean? So that other often cutely portrayed, bruh. I know the elven domain, the mushroom. There are in fact two types of mushrooms within the fairy distinction. Niggas still pop shrooms to this day. Bruh. The first of which is called the mushroom or the fairy ring. This is the attractive little parasol top mushroom which tastes as good as it looks and is one of the first to appear in springtime. Okay. The other, though wildly colorful and often used in fairy depictions, is somewhat less acceptable because of its uncomfortable hallucinogenic effects. This is the fly agaric or the Amanita muscaria, the familiar red-topped fungus with the white, warty protuberances. That might call it image of mine. Don't worry, yeah. So yada yada yada. It was used in tribal ceremonies. And see, this nigga's gonna lie, being largely responsible for many emergent stories of people flying or shapeshifting into animals and birds. Hell no, all that's real. It's just demonic as hell. This partake of the mushroom was reckoned to be a divine instrument of immortality and was very much a part of the Scythian fairy culture. Look at it. It's on the screen. Red topped with white warty protuberances. And this is from Nintendo, the same niggas who made The Legend of Zelda. It's a wrap. Often cutely portrayed, my guy. So it is said that many things are exaggerated while under the influence of the freaking red mushroom from Mario. and that a person stepping, say, over a straw would react as if they're stepping over a log. Thus, it was felt that any person or warrior who's able to confront and combat the mentally determined obstacles presented by this hallucinogen will find the real trials of life minimal in comparison. Yada, 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 going down. The Amanita muscaria are therefore called fairy mushrooms, not because the fairies sat on them, but because they ate them to demolish fears, complexes, and inhibitions.
Leave us.
The warrior returns from the land of the dead.
Brought you a souvenir.
It is time. Drink. This is a poison for the weak. Only the strongest will survive it. Follow the path.
What kind of man are you? Your senses be clouded by others. You walk their paths instead of your own. But I can feel the fire in you.
What the hell is that thing?
You will defeat anyone who stands in your way. A warrior from the northern kingdom heard of the giant and vowed to slay him. And cut on his body, devour from the land. And when he was ready, walked the path of the lotus. The giant arose from still waters.
You are Rakyat.
Across this island, Boss and his pirates enslave the bodies and the minds of the Rakyat. Our guns do not stop until Boss falls at our feet. We are the warriors of the Rakyat, and I will lead you to glory!
Yeah, man. It's really like that out here. Now, as you can see, he's talking about how the Ring Lord heritage reverts immediately back to the biblical lords of Edom, whom we encountered in our investigation of the Albigensians, or Elf Maiden bloodline. Remember Bashamoth and them? Those were all dragons. So he was already in that. That's why Isaac and Rebecca was not taken too kindly to them two wives, because they was heathens, and it was far worse than that. These noble princes, the sons and descendants of Isaac's son Esau, so our twin, were the very race from whom the Tuatha De Danann fairy kings emerged. So yeah, Lu, Cuchulainn, Achilles, all them types. So now do you see why he's stubble? Do you understand a little bit more? Just a little bit, maybe. Right here in the Old Testament, Isaiah 35:1, the wilderness and the solitary place shall be glad for them, and the desert shall rejoice and blossom as the rose. That's why the elves are always in the forest, Robin Hood, Peter Pan. It all makes sense, man. While adding that the screech owl shall also rest there and find for herself a place of rest. But the screech owl definition is inside in the name of Lamia, the female blood-sucking demon of Greek mythology mentioned at the outset of this chapter. In Hebrew tradition, Lamia was associated with Lilith, who was said to fly like a night owl, and who rose to become so-called gods or queenly concept. But they're just talking about fallen angels and stuff. In this translation from the Hebrew text, Semitic scholar Raphael Bataille, chill out, bro. I swear. it's like annoying seeing people use my name now because it's like, bruh, that's. Let me calm down. Quotes the relevant screech owl section of Isaiah 34:14 as, yeah, Lilith shall repose there and find her a place of rest. And so it was that Lilith, the great matriarch of the ring lords, so dragons, so elves. Remember, fallen angels came to sleep with the daughters of men, and Nephilim became evil spirits on the earth because their origin was from angels. The seed of them was from an angel. So the mother of all demons. It's like, yeah, it makes sense, doesn't it? So Lilith, the great matriarch of the ring lords, went through the literary process of becoming a Lamia, a screech owl, witch, and ultimately the mother of vampires. Therefore, the church directly attached the vampire mythology to her mythology, quote unquote, to her descendants of the fairy race. And as a result of this so-called strategy, because keep in mind, these are there's two different types of dragons, right? The white dragon and the red dragon. We all know the children of Ham and such, they always used to fight. All these niggas, they don't get along, alright? That the term vampire evolved from the ancient Scythian language of the Tuatha. But that's why this nigga is constantly mentioning the damn church. Because he has an agenda. It's like I just said, white dragon, red dragon. We all know for a goddamn fact that the Christian church is nothing but the devil. Okay, so are these damn elves. I don't give a damn which side of the coin you on. I mean, boy, incinerate.
See, all of these legends come from real places.
When Edward I claimed the throne of Scotland, among other documents which his learned clerks consulted was the prophecy of Merlin in Geoffrey of Monmouth's history.
Here is an example of Geoffrey's portentous-sounding prophecies. A giant, snow-white in colour and gleaming bright, will beget a people which is radiant. Merlin's first appearance at the time of Vortigern, a chieftain in the days after the Romans left. Merlin's first appearance at the time of Vortigern, a chieftain in the days after the Romans left. As a usurping leader of the Britons, Vortigern had made the fatal mistake of inviting Saxon mercenaries into the country as auxiliary troops against an alliance of enemies from the north. Predictably, the Saxons didn't just do the job they had been hired for. They stayed on and settled more and more of their people on the lands they had been paid to defend. Finally, Vortigern lost control of them as they went on a rampage, massacring the British and despoiling the country. So, Vortigern himself had to flee to the safety of the mountains of northwest Wales. His magicians advised him to build a strong fortress, but the wall was no sooner built than it collapsed each night. In the face of this bad omen, the magicians prescribed the blood of a boy without a father to be sprinkled on the foundation stones. In nearby Carmarthen, they found the young Merlin, whose mother was the daughter of the king of the Welsh kingdom of Dyfed. She had been impregnated by an incubus demon while living with the nuns at a local convent. So, Merlin had no earthly father, which qualified him for the role of sacrificial victim. An underground pool in which lay two dragons, one red, the other white, sealed in stone. Once the pool was drained, the dragons fought, and, as they struggled for supremacy, a spirit of prophecy took hold of Merlin. Under its influence, he uttered many strange sayings. These were the Prophetiae Merlini that Geoffrey had put in his first book. Merlin explained the red dragon symbolized the Britons, and the white one was their enemy, the Saxons. The white dragon would prevail for a while, but ultimately the red dragon would throw it back across the sea it came from. He foresaw the rise of a leader who would hold back the invaders for a time, meaning Arthur, not yet born at that point. And lastly, after many cryptic predictions, he warned Vortigern that the rightful princes, Aurelius and Uther, exiled offspring of the last Roman ruler, Constantine, were returning to claim back the kingdom and his life. Exiled offspring of the last Roman ruler, Constantine, were returning to claim back the kingdom and his life.
Rebel lords gathered to Daemon's black dragon banner, and the red dragon battled the black.
The great houses, like the Lannisters, Arryns, Tullys, and Martells, stayed loyal to the Targaryens. They wanted to preserve their power in the status quo. The Blackfyre supporters were mostly the less powerful houses hoping to gain power under a different king. Houses like the Ironwoods in Dorne and the Reynes in the Westerlands have a history of rebelling against their liege lords. So there were many battles all across Westeros.
See right here, early authors talking about vampires' dislike of sunlight and love for the moon. And in 1872, some nigga wrote a book about a female vampire called Carmilla, which introduced some of the brooding gothic themes. Remember from the very first minutes of this video, in that TCA video, the goths came from Armanon, which came from sons of Japheth. So you see how this all connects? Which have since become so familiar. Carmilla slept in a coffin, had superhuman strength, became a vampire by being bitten from another, and was killed by a stake through the heart. Carmilla. Now, I've heard that name many times, a million times. It's for a reason, you know? Dracula. This was for a reason.
Second Prince Camilla, a beautiful but incredibly sadistic and demonstrably heartless individual with a fondness for shopping.
The term Gothic was a prize in literature, and in essence, Gothic writing centers upon a dark and sinister theme with a mysterious, perhaps supernatural terror prevailing in a suspenseful environment. Fruit does not fall far from the tree. See later on down, yada yada yada, through a whole lot of BS. Bram Stoker makes Dracula, and Bram Stoker was a member of the Golden Dawn, which is a secret society. It's all the same nonsense. You can see right here that Dracula meant devil, so Voivode Dracula means devil prince. But it says right here more accurately, it would mean son of Dracul, while Dracul in Latin means dragon, or from the Latin word Draco, which is the name of a constellation, means dragon. So you got Dracula, Dracul, Draco, dragon, a whole lot of devilry going on, man. In the book, they talk about how Dracula learned witchcraft and magic from the Scholomance, or the School of Solomon. Good grief, man. It's having to do with vampire cults and stuff. Regarding the Scholomance, he wrote that it's a devil's school where they learn the secrets of nature, the language of animals, and all magic spells are taught. The mystery schools, yada yada yada. And Prince Vlad the Impaler had attended this alchemical mystery school. And I watched a video about it. Apparently, they only accept 10 students at a time. It's taught by the devil himself, which could be anything, anything on that side. And once the term, once the semester is over, man, once the report cards get sent home, 9 of them can leave, but 1 of them have to stay and serve the devil forever. So, yeah, apparently. See right there at the bottom, among other things, Gerard additionally confirmed the tradition that Nosferatu were capable of creating other vampires by extracting their blood. So biting them is the same way, infections. And that the creatures could be exorcised by way of stakes driven through their corpses, aspects that were used by Bram Stoker, a member of a secret society, in his novel. See right here, he's lying for him, although not considered in any way to be a vampire in the sense of a blood-sucking revenant. Man, shut up. Shut up. This nigga had a forest and niggas impaled on stakes. Shut up. And if you look up stuff about Vlad the Impaler, they say that nigga coffin empty. So, yeah. He was certainly an overlord of the old tradition, even having the reddish hair and green eyes of his Scythian ancestor, just like Genghis Khan had red hair and green eyes. He attended the Austrian School of Solomon and had graduated with honors in a ritual known as riding the dragon. So he was a renowned alchemist and a warlock, black magician. He was a member of something called the Order of the Dragon, which basically holds like all types of information and knowledge and just goes for that whole brain over heart, you know. This is worldly, demonic nonsense. People like Robert Sheldrake and stuff like that are Warriors of the Dragon and stuff. They like to gatekeep knowledge behind secret societies and devilry. See right here, he emerged with a keen understanding of the glandular bodily effects of endocrinal secretions, which enhance longevity and increase consciousness. He was a high melatonin producer, possibly even an adept of the old time starfire culture, which, like I said, is basically sacred period blood. It's period blood from women or females with a lot of Anunnaki blood in their line. So yeah, and they also do this stuff called Rita, which sometimes apparently oh my god, a female of royal stock produces when she's sexually aroused. So it makes like it serves the same purpose. As you can see right here at the bottom, it says people with high melatonin are adversely affected by sunlight, for they are night operatives. More on that in a bit. So you see the key members of the messianic strain, the false messianic strain, the ultimate elf, Elif, Asa, succession of the Albigens or elf maidens, dynastic kings and queens of the Sangreal, which means blood royal, and their senior upires, which just means like upper or like super or like above. Superman? These people were real, and everyone knew that, so they could not be confined to the superficial realm of fairy fantasy. They could, however, be portrayed as if they were of a weird half-human strain, which is exactly what they are. They're like, I'm half-human, so are these niggas, except we're the right way. At the least, they were mermaids. At the worst, they were werewolves or vampires. But either way, they were proclaimed to be all and sundry as the evil, shape-shifting disciples of Satan. Hashatan, which just means adversary. So, all of them. Because that's what they are. Shape-shifting judges. Wicked-ass angels. The end. Was there something in the Opire tradition, which, like I said, just means upper, like super. That's why Superman is like that. Superman, that's not an S on his chest. Look it up to tell you yourself. It's a snake. It's a snake. Was there something that suggested they had extraordinary aptitudes and powers? Was there something that linked them specifically with Carpathian regions of Europe, especially with places such as Transylvania? The single answer to these questions and to many others which could be similarly asked is yes. Like I said, all this stuff is true, especially back in them days, boy. But it's gonna get like that again real soon. So you can see the upires of the uppers were the overlords of the old Scythian race of the ring lords. They were highest bred priestly caste of legendary warriors, being portal guardians of Raz and masters of the transcendent city, which is to them just enlightenment and using hella force, man. It's very straightforward. These were the people whose tribes made their homes in wood-framed dwellings and whose culture was centered upon their Kurgan burial mounds. Burial mounds all over the world, including North America. Within one of which were found the tall chieftains' bodies tattooed with ring-tailed lemurs. You can see towards the bottom where apparently, allegedly, pre-Sumerian writings were discovered at Tartaria, so Tartary, Gog and Magog and such, in Transylvania, the land beyond the forest, which is still recognized as the homeland of the vampire. Telling you, they've been scared of us for a long time. Remember, there is a war in heaven. They got their asses beat back then. It's going to happen again. D. David, obviously. Come on now. Also, the Will of D. Come on now. Also known as Vampire Hunter D is a Dampir, a half-breed. Who travels around the frontier in search of the nobility. It's noted in almost every book that D has superior strength, skills, and knowledge in comparison to other Dampir. It is hinted that this is because he has some special connected to the sacred ancestor. Huh? It is generally regarded that D is his son. Huh? Who? Me? We? Yeah, you. Right here, Vampire Hunter D, just like that. 144, just like way early in the video, if you remember, Demon Slayer mark. 144. Who's really on top? Alright, if you eating something, put that shit down for the time being. Alright. Earlier, we looked at the ancient starfire customs of Mesopotamia and Indo-Europe, wherein the Amrita and the menstrual rasa of the goddess were jointly considered to be the vehicle of light, the gold of the gods, and the nectar of supreme excellence. Subsequent to Anunnaki times, however, the culture centered upon specially bred virgin priestesses of the orders of those such as Kali, Vesta, and Diana. These red-robed fire maidens became known as the sacred or beloved scarlet women, whose essences were prized. Like I said, that's what the cup and the Holy Grail represents, bro, for them. The fucking womb with the blood in it, man. In communities whose calendars and customs were lunar-based, these female extracts were used as supplemental food for the royal bloodline. Starfire is related to the Ritu, the redness, the truth, and since menstruum contains valuable endocrinal secretions, secrets, the recipient's own hormonal levels were thereby increased, leading to greater powers of awareness, perception, and general intuition in a process referred to in fairy lore, dragon lore, as the quickening. We now know that certain attributes of ancient Mesopotamia, such as scriptural writing, were not uniquely devised in regional Akkad and Sumer, but have been taken there by earlier Scythians of the Karapathian culture, as had the godly traditions of those such as Anu, Enki, and Lilith. Which is why when niggas be talking about Enlil is Michael, and fucking Michael is the son of the sky god Anu, miss me with that shit, cause ain't nobody from over this side drinking no period blood. Like, miss me with that stupid shit, bro. I swear to God, like I'm finna get mad, but it's all good. Now get ready. Here come the climax. Among the body's endocrinal secretions, the melatonin hormone, a product of the pineal gland, so the third eye, has only been isolated in recent times. People with a high melatonin output react strongly against sunlight, which affects their mental capability, so they're inclined to be night operatives, and melatonin is called the hormone of darkness, being produced only at night or away from ultraviolet influence. Exposure to an excess of natural light makes the pineal gland smaller and lessens spiritual awareness, according to them, whereas darkness and high pineal activity enhance the keen intuitive knowledge of the subtle mind and reduce the stress factor. Consequently, melatonin itself is a night worker. You see where we going? Bing, bam, boom. Upon entering the world of ritualistically enhanced melatonin, so third eye production, we have entered the true realm of the original vampire. Just like that, the realm of the night operative, the upper prince of darkness, whose powers were enhanced by the nectar of the starfire. God damn, boy. It was considered that the foremost aspect of life was active blood. Life is in the blood. I mean, they said it. These niggas like to take shit and run with it the wrong direction, my guy. I'm talking about the life is in the blood. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Niggas just talk about missing the point. I mean, boy. Melatonin, manufactured by the pineal gland through an activated chemical messenger called serotonin, a product of the pituitary gland. This transmits nerve impulses across chromosome pairs, called meiosis, when the cell nuclei are divided and the chromosomes are halved to be combined with other half sets upon fertilization. Melatonin enhances and boosts the body's immune system, and those with high pineal secretion are less likely to develop cancerous diseases. High melatonin production increases energy, stamina, and physical tolerance levels, meaning you can get hit harder, and it's directly related to sleep patterns, keeping the bodily temperature regulated with properties that operate the cardiovascular system, or through the cardiovascular system. It is the body's most potent and effective antioxidant, and it has positive mental and physical anti-aging properties, son.
You're gonna stay away from her.
You know I can't do that.
Bing, bang, boom, it's a wrap. Now, yeah, that shit was not going on until these fallen ones came and did what they did. So, all these niggas get their power from the devil. Plain and simple. We get our powers from God, quote unquote. For example, and they know this shit, man. This is Yuji from this new anime called Jujutsu Kaisen, taking the world by storm. Talked about it before. You go, because you know there ain't no J, so you go. Notice how a lot of these, well, you'll notice if you look, a lot of these damn protagonists, especially in anime, have Y starting in their names. So, like, for example, earlier, Yoruichi, Yusuke, that's the demon sleeper nigga. This guy, Yuji, there's Yasuke, like, yeah, you get the idea. He possesses superhuman abilities even without the demon inside of his body. He can cover a distance of 50 meters in 3 seconds, and he threw a lead ball with so much force he bent his school's metallic goalpost. See right here, he punching through a wall, concrete wall. That nigga strong, big body.
Now, when Jacob saw the daughter of his mother's brother approaching, he rolled the great stone from the mouth of the well as easily as a cork is drawn from a bottle. The fourth wonder of this extraordinary day. Jacob's strength was equal to the strength of all the shepherds. With his 2 arms alone, he accomplished what usually requires the united forces of a large assemblage of men. He had been divinely endowed with this supernatural strength on leaving the Holy Land. God had caused the dew of the resurrection to drop down upon him, and his physical strength was so great that even in a combat with the angels he was victorious. The two men made a treaty, and with his gigantic strength Jacob set up a huge rock as a memorial, and a heap of stones as a sign of their covenant. In this matter Jacob followed the example of his fathers, who likewise had covenanted with heathen nations, Abraham with the Jebusites, and Isaac with the Philistines. Therefore Jacob did not hesitate to make a treaty with the Arameans. Jacob summoned his sons, calling them brethren, for they were his peers in piety and strength, and he bade them cast up heaps of stones.
Hey man, the history is fire. Like the real order of things. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, this shit is so far from a game, but we on the winning side, so I can say it. This shit is fire. Anyway, I was telling my boy Marty about this movie on YouTube called Project Echo, which is nothing but symbolism about us fighting, about everything we've been talking about in this video for like an hour and 30 minutes is this in this movie symbolized to the nth degree. So in it, Echo, Shotty got red hair, she's super strong, and Biko, she doesn't got no superpowers from God. She is on that science weird stuff. Like, we just got through reading that they get all these powers and stuff through not only having royal blood in them, but the melatonin and all that other scientific stuff. He was just going all in depth on that, right? So let's peep this little clip. Pay attention to what Shotty in the suit says with the blue hair, who's Esau.
Now I'm dressed for action. This suit gives me the power to match you in unarmed combat. While I'm wearing this suit, my reflexes are twice as fast as yours. Get ready, Echo. It's curtains for you.
Yep, their power is artificial, ours is natural. I'm a pure breed, they're effed up. Ableist says we got our godly DNA from God, and Cain and them from a forbidden fleshy union. So it's like, yeah, it's all there, you know. Again, just to drive the point home, it is therefore apparent that the most ancient customs of the uppers were identical to those of the Grail Kings, and this is hardly surprising, since they are precisely the same root culture from the biblical lords of Edom, of which there were 12. Our twin, man. Ain't no more Edom, though. It's just wrong. It's just the sons of darkness now. This pharaonic and Mesopotamian kingly line, by way of certain strategic marriages into the patriarchal line of the Old Testament, led ultimately to King David, which is a bold-faced lie, which is why I put Yeet next to it, and on to the Elven dynasty of Jesus, which is not a lie. Unfortunately, though, I mean, they did get into the line. Like, that's one thing that a lot of people know. Judah and them, he took heathen wives and such. Solomon, we already know what's up with him. So there is some truth to that, but that damn sure was not how David got here. Yo. Oh, my goodness, these niggas, man. You see that? Even after all this vainglory he been spouting this whole book, this nigga still trying to get our place. Still covered in that spot. Because niggas know who really on top. Come on. Just to wrap it all up in a nice, neat little bow. A nice, neat little present with a neater little bow on top. The fairy tale concept is essentially geared to stories relating to these persecutions of the elves. Because remember, white dragon, red dragon, them niggas did not get along. They, you know, these are power hungry people. My guy, if we fought each other all the time and a lot, you don't even gotta imagine what they was on. You feel me? These were allegorical accounts of the predicament of the true royal family, the ring lords of the Sangria or Blood Royal, whose fairies and elves, having been maneuvered from the mortal plane into a seemingly otherworldly existence, deception. They were the shining ones, whose story became with the upper ad culture of the royal sis, the original uppers who evolved from the Tuatha De Danann priest class, which came from our twin, Esau, and a dragon queen. So yes, yes, yes. The wood lords of the Ulanu, which is where Yuletide comes from, the forest people of whatever that is, and the princely race of the Pixid. All dragons, all Esau, all the sons of darkness, all dead. All dead. These ancient guardians have never been positively featured in our academic teachings for the very reason they were the real progenitors of their spiritual heritage. Instead, the reality was quashed from the earliest days of the Roman suppression as the literal diminution of their figures caused a parallel diminishing of their history. What was the first video I played in this study about how Esau was subjugated by Rome and has become one with them ever since? My God, 2 and 2 together equals 4. It all makes sense. It all makes sense. And they were no longer able to lift their head, remember? For all the days. Notwithstanding this, the fact is, for all we have been told, or all they have been told about their cultural identity from being classic scholarship of Greece or from the imperial majesty of Rome, are entirely untrue. Such establishes appear very late in the day, because remember, Esau was reigning well before the children of Israel had any king over them. The true sovereign so-called heritage of Western culture, the culture from which divide all the so-called myth and legend, which sits so comfortably within our collective memory, comes from one place alone. Are you seeing what's going on here? It comes from a place and time which, to use J.R.R. Tolkien's definition, might just well be called Middle Earth, the fatness of the earth, as by any other name. It comes from the long-distant realm of the Ring Lords. Roll the freaking credits, man. Right here, you got a copy of the Red Fairy book, the best story he ever read, the tale of Sigurd the Volsung, which is just everything we've been talking about the same type of niggas. Quote unquote from him, I desire dragons with a profound desire, he stated long afterwards. Y'all stay prayed up out here, man. All praises to the kingdom in the name of Yahushua and Yahuwah. Hey, man, we got some Elves to hang coming up here soon, bro. I hope y'all excited. I sure am.